faithfully delivering value and interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, I'll interpret for you the book called The Balance, subtitled A True Record of the Song-Mongol War in the 13th Century. The author, Gu Hongyi, is a Song Dynasty scholar and researcher at the East China Normal University Ancient Books Research Institute. And if you've read Jin Young's novel, The Return of the Condor Heroes, you'll surely remember the great battle at Xiangyang between the Southern Song and the Mongols, with Guo Jing personally leading in the novel. In the novel, the Mongol Khan gets killed by Yang Guo with a flying stone, and Guo Jing and his wife lead martial heroes to defend Xiangyang to the death, sacrificing heroically. But hey, it's just fiction. But historically, the Southern Song did resist Mongol invasions for a whopping 45 years. In the 13th century, Mongol cavalry swept across Eurasia, yet the Southern Song, often seen as militarily weak, became the Mongols' biggest nightmare. Sadly, the Southern Song court's series of blunders later not only ruined their advantage, but also pushed them toward doom. This book covers the whole saga from, the first diplomatic contacts between the Southern Song and Mongols to the full-blown war, and finally to the Southern Song's fall to the Mongols. Next, I'll break it down into 3 parts for you. The book's content. Part 1, how the Southern Song and Mongols shifted from allies to enemies. Part 2, how the Southern Song turned the tide early in the war, but then shot themselves in the foot. Part 3, how the real Battle of Xiangyang sealed the Southern Song's fate. First up, Part 1, how the Southern Song and Mongols went from alliance to war. The alliance between the Southern Song and Mongols is tied closely to the Jin Dynasty. Since the 12th century, the Southern Song and Jin faced off north-south. Not only bitter enemies, but the Song had to pay annual tribute to Jin, which was downright humiliating. But a turning point came in the early 13th century. In 1206, Genghis Khan founded the unified Mongol Khanate and kicked off foreign conquests. The Jin Dynasty, once mighty but declining, couldn't hold off the Mongol cavalry and had to ditch their capital Jiandu, now Beijing, moving south to Kaifeng, below the Yellow River. North China got snapped up by the Mongols real quick. The Southern Song caught wind of Jin's retreat fast. 2 opposing views emerged in court and society. One called for cutting off Jin and prepping for Mongols. No severing ties with Jin while bracing for the Mongols. Defending against the Mongols for Jin. This view argued Jin was already on its last legs, so the Southern Song should stop paying tribute, seize the chance during the Mongol-Jin fights to retake the Central Plains, and simultaneously guard against Mongol attacks. Another proposal was to ally with Jin against the Mongols. This view held that although the Jin Dynasty was a sworn enemy of the Southern Song, it served as a defensive barrier against the Mongols. The Southern Song should keep paying tribute to Jin, so Jin could use the money to fight the Mongols. If Jin perished, it would be like when the lips are gone, the teeth feel cold. Meaning, mutual dependence leads to shared peril. The Southern Song would face imminent disaster. 2 viewpoints. Attitudes toward Jin differed greatly, but defense against the Mongols was surprisingly consistent. Clearly, the Southern Song learned from the Jingkang incident of the Northern Song, where the Northern Song allied with Jin to destroy the Liao dynasty, only to be destroyed by Jin itself. The Southern Song didn't want to repeat that mistake. This attitude was prominently displayed in the first diplomatic encounter between the Song and Mongols. In early 1214, 3 Mongol cavalrymen crossed the Huai River under cover of night at the Southern Song border, presenting a letter and a map drawn on silk to the Song troops, claiming to be envoys of Genghis Khan, hoping to ally with the Song to destroy Jin. Upon hearing this, the local military governor, citing lack of orders from superiors, sent the Mongol envoys back to the north bank of the Huai River and ordered the garrison, whenever encountering Mongol envoys, they were to be expelled. The news of the Mongol envoy's rejection was later reported to the Southern Song court, whose attitude was equally cold. Hmm. While cold-shouldering relations with the Mongols, the Southern Song also adopted a compromise policy toward Jin. On one hand, they stopped the tribute payments, and on the other, they strictly forbade Song troops from provoking Jin. Jin, furious over the loss of tribute, launched continuous wars against the Southern Song from 1217 onwards, but suffered repeated defeats. The Southern Song then adopted a more radical foreign policy, allying to destroy Jin. In spring 1220, the Southern Song took the initiative for the first time, sending envoys to contact the Mongols. They met Genghis Khan in the western regions. Delighted, he not only warmly hosted the Song envoys but also returned the imperial jade seal of the Northern Song, obtained during campaigns against Jin. Although the specifics of this diplomatic event are lost to history, the author believes they must have discussed joint plans to destroy Jin. The Mongols' enthusiasm left an excellent impression on the Song envoys. Throughout the Southern Song, it was widely believed that a Song-Mongol alliance was imminent. The chancellor even showed border generals a secret edict about the agreement. But bizarrely, in 1222 and 1227, Mongol troops actually launched attacks on the Sichuan-Shanxi border of the Southern Song, massacring civilians extensively. The frontline generals of the Southern Song were baffled, but some at court saw through the Mongols' trick. Genghis Khan's so-called alliance and friendship weren't equal. He demanded allies to obey the Mongols unquestioningly, or else they'd be enemies. In short, either surrender to the Mongols or be destroyed by them. No third option. In 1231, the Mongols attacked the Southern Song's Sichuan-Shanxi border again to outflank Jin, forcibly crossing Song territory under the pretext of borrowing passage, infuriating the Song and freezing relations. Yet 2 years later, the Mongols, still fighting Jin, reached out to the Southern Song again. Turns out, Mongol troops habitually seized grain locally in enemy territory to supply their army. But after years of Mongol devastation, Henan was already barren wasteland. The Mongols found no grain to plunder. Facing starvation, they had to crush Jin quickly to end the war. But Jin still held significant territory in Henan. To win fast, the Mongols had to negotiate with the Song. Despite Mongol atrocities, most Song officials agreed to ally because, under Mongol assault, Jin was dying, its emperor even abandoning Kaifeng, fleeing to Kaiju for a last stand. With shared interest in destroying Jin, the Song temporarily set aside grievances with the Mongols. In January 1234, Song-Mongol forces captured Kaiju, ending the Jin Dynasty. With their common enemy gone, the alliance's collapse was inevitable, but this time the Song struck first. That June, Song troops exploited the Mongol army's withdrawal north, crossing the border into undermanned Henan and recapturing Nanjing, modern Shangchu, within a month. They then seized Danjing, Kaifeng, and Xijing, pushing the border to the Yellow River. Known historically as the Duanping advance into Luoyang, after the era name. But behind this glorious victory lurked massive crises. First, supply shortages. Like the Mongols, the Song couldn't forage in war-ravaged Henan. Supplies had to come from the rear, but the Mongols had sabotaged dikes, flooding the Yellow River basin. Waster neck deep water plus June heat made marching, let alone supply transport, grueling. Worse, the Song leadership disagreed on reclaiming Henan, so regional commanders refused orders to reinforce the front. Starved and isolated, the Song troops, though holding Henan, were demoralized. Like a spent arrow, they soon retreated in disarray under Mongol counterattacks. The Mongol invasion of Song was a fixed national policy. After Jin's fall, the Song-Mongol War became inevitable. The Duanping advance into Luoyang was a strategically sound decision, but the Southern Song wasn't prepared. Riding high after destroying Jin, they rashly marched north. Nanping, Instead of gaining strategic initiative before the Mongols, it backfired, accelerating the war's full outbreak and putting the Song in terrible peril. Part 2 examines how the Southern Song reversed early setbacks, yet later sabotaged themselves. After the Luoyang failure, they responded proactively. Knowing Mongol retaliation was coming after the Luoyang defeat, the Southern Song actively built border defenses. They established 3 major war zones west to east: Sichuan, Jinghu, and Lianghuai. In autumn 1235, the Mongols attacked in 3 routes, igniting full-scale war. The Sichuan zone, positioned upstream on the Yangtze, was strategically vital. If captured, Mongols could sail down to strike Jinghu and Lianghuai. Thus, Sichuan became the Mongols' main target. The Sichuan war zone covered modern Sichuan, Chongqing, southern Shanxi, and southern Gansu. With the Qinling Mountains blocking the north, it was naturally defensible. But incompetent Southern Song commanders let the Mongol army easily breach the Qinling defenses in 1236, advancing unchecked. Sichuan had been a key revenue source, but Mongol massacres decimated its population and economy. It couldn't support other fronts. Instead, it drained troops and supplies nationwide, stretching Song resources to the limit. To reverse this, in 1241, the Southern Song appointed renowned General Yu Ji as Sichuan commander, granting him sweeping military and fiscal powers. With Chengdu, Sichuan's military-political center, destroyed, Yu Ji based his headquarters in Chongqing, a key eastern stronghold. Chongqing as a strategic pivot. Yu Ji's greatest contribution after entering Sichuan was creating a complete mountain fortress defense system. Sichuan's mountains naturally counted cavalry, but the Song hadn't leveraged this. Previously, they'd only built forts like Diaoyu Mountain, modern Hechuan, Chongqing. Yu Ji rushed to fortify Diaoyu and stockpile grain for sustained defense. He also pushed through opposition and expanded this approach across Sichuan, building over 10 mountain fortresses in one go. These strategically positioned mountain fortresses spread across Sichuan like chess pieces, eventually numbering over 80. They served as strongholds that supported each other, with Yu Ji's mountain fortress system playing a huge role in resisting the Mongols. Represented by Diaoyu Fortress, Mount Diaoyu sits at the confluence of the Jiling, Kuo, and Fu rivers, just 70 kilometers south of Chongqing. At 391 meters elevation, its treacherous terrain features sheer cliffs on all sides, surrounded by rivers on 3 sides, with just one land connection. Perched high, Diaoyu Fortress commanded the river confluence like a fan shielding Chongqing, easy to defend but hard to attack. On Yu Ji's recommendation, veteran Mongol fighter Wang Qian was put in charge. Based on the fortress's features, Rongjian devised a defense plan, leveraging the terrain to intimidate enemies. While Diaoyu already had inner and outer walls, Rongjian incorporated river defenses into the system. He built naval docks along the banks and deployed hundreds of warships, effectively coordinating naval and mountain defenses. Refugees flooded in from across Sichuan, swelling to over 100,000 people. Diaoyu became a populous fortress with elite troops and ample provisions, capable of independent long-term defense. In autumn 1258, the Mongols returned. Möngke Khan, Genghis Khan's grandson, personally led the main force against Sichuan, targeting Chongqing. Fighting intensified by early next year. Early that year, Möngke's troops arrived at Diaoyu Fortress. With Yu Ji long dead, Wang Jin took command. Möngke first blockaded the river, surrounded Mount Diaoyu, and cut off outside strongholds, especially isolating Jinghu reinforcements. East of Chongqing, Diaoyu became a lone fortress. In early February, Möngke launched a fierce assault. With superior numbers, high morale, and elite troops, the Mongols put immense pressure on the Song defenders. But Mongol river forces plundered hundreds of Song grain ships and warships, while land troops breached the outer walls. But the Song troops weren't pushovers. Under Wang Zhan's leadership, soldiers and civilians fought fiercely and actually drove the Mongols back. Seeing brute force failed, Möngke then deployed sophisticated siege engines. The terrain of Diaoyu Fortress was too treacherous. The Mongol cannons and siege ladders couldn't be deployed at all, making the engineering gear useless. Mongol Khan then sent suicide squads to storm Diaoyu Fortress along narrow mountain paths, resulting in corpses strewn everywhere. And so, the Mongol siege of Diaoyu Fortress lasted half a year. By Möngke's estimate, Diaoyu should have run out of water and food long ago. Fall seemed imminent, but shockingly, this little fortress still had ample supplies. Turns out, Wang Zhan had prepped thoroughly for supplies. Inside the west gate, he built one large reservoir, 13 small ponds, and 92 wells with perennial springs, ensuring water couldn't be cut off during sieges. Additionally, the mountaintop of Diaoyu Fortress spans over 10 li, flat and open. Wang Jian led the people in farming there, spring planting, autumn harvest, stockpiling enough grain for Diaoyu to be self-sufficient. To show off their reserves and confidence to the Mongols, Wang Jian ordered cannons fired near their camp. Except the projectiles weren't rocks or gunpowder, they were 2 fresh fish and over 100 steamed buns. Notes tucked in the buns read, "You northern troops can cook the fish and eat these buns. We'll hold out 10 more years. You'll never take this city." This fish and bun bombardment crushed the morale of the already battered Mongol army. By June, Sichuan's muggy heat hit hard. Mongol soldiers and horses from northern steppes suffered severe acclimatization. Plague swept the camp. Möngke ordered Central Asian doctors to contain it, but they could only suggest strong liquor to fight cholera. Result? Not only did the plague rage on, but soldiers' health and fighting power tanked from heavy drinking. Internal decisive conflictive tone. Glory-hungry generals pushed to keep sieging. Others urged bypassing Diaoyu and Chongqing to strike downstream, and some even called for retreat north. Möngke himself caught the plague, yet ignored the last 2 options. His call to keep sieging was purely political. After Genghis Khan died, his descendants openly and covertly fought over the Khanate. Though honored as Great Khan, Möngke's throne was shaky. Even his own brother Kublai, a brilliant warrior and politician, threatened him. He enjoyed high prestige in the Central Plains, but also drew Möngke's suspicion. In Möngke's eyes, only by achieving feats surpassing his ancestors could he consolidate his rule. So Möngke ordered tighter blockade and surveillance on Diaoyu Fortress, waiting for autumn coolness to resume attacks.
To scout the fortress, Mongols built a watchtower outside Diaoyu's west gate for monitoring.
In early July, Möngke ascended the completed tower to oversee battle but was wounded by Song artillery. Forced to compromise, he left 3,000 troops watching Diaoyu while leading the main force toward Chongqing. But before reaching Chongqing, Möngke succumbed to severe injuries and illness in camp. Wang Jian's defense of Diaoyu Fortress achieved the Southern Song's greatest military victory against the Mongols. 1. Möngke's death halted Mongol expansion across Eurasia so profoundly that Europeans called Diaoyu the place where God broke the whip. Fierce wars erupted over the Khanate, letting the Southern Song reverse early disadvantages and gain precious strategic time. Logically, the Song should have reused star generals, strengthened defenses, even launched northern expeditions. But like when they wrongfully executed Yue Fei early in the dynasty, stability bred self-sabotage, reviving ancestral policies to suppress military leaders. To fight Mongols, the court had granted generals sweeping powers, but this planted dangerous seeds. Generals held excessive power, severely challenging central authority. Meanwhile, rampant corruption among commanders crippled military and financial strength. Power then rested with Chancellor Jia Sedao, a dominant political figure. After Mongol withdrawal, Jia launched the audit policy in 1261, investigating generals' spending to reclaim embezzled funds. Officially, it aimed to curb military corruption and reduce expenses, but secretly, Jia exploited it to purge rivals, build personal authority, and centralize military control. Under the audits, Defiant generals like Wang Jian were stripped of command. He died depressed, while others were jailed and perished in prison. This severely demoralized the Song army and crippled its fighting capacity.
Even worse, the audit policy forced out Liu Zheng's defection to the Mongols, which had a fatal impact on the Southern Song.
Liu Zhang was a senior general in the Sichuan war zone. He was originally from the Jin Dynasty, defected to the Southern Song at the end of Jin, and repeatedly distinguished himself in the war against the Mongols. However, Lu Xing's superior Jishan Duneng, supported by Jia Sidao, repeatedly suppressed Lu Xing in 1261. In April, the Southern Song began implementing the audit policy in Liu Zheng's jurisdiction. To escape punishment, Liu Zheng bribed his superior heavily, but it wasn't accepted. Watching more experienced and decorated generals fall one by one, Liu Jing knew he was doomed. To save himself, in June, he led his troops to surrender to the Mongols. It was this Liu Zheng who later advised the Mongols and became the gravedigger of the Southern Song. The audit policy reflected the dark and chaotic politics of the Southern Song, which had a fatal impact on the war. For the third part, I'll use the real battle of Xiangyang and Fancheng to show you the fall of the Southern Song Dynasty. Shangfan is the combined name for Xiangyang and Fancheng. These two cities are located in the middle reaches of the Yangtze River at the northern end of the Jianghan Plain, flanking the Han River. They belong to the Jinghu war zone of the Southern Song and have always been a strategic military point. With Xiangyang, the Southern Song could advance to conquer the Central Plains or retreat to shield the Jianghan region. What is that? But once Xiangyang is lost, there would be no natural barriers to defend. The gates would be wide open. Early in the Song-Mongol War, Shangfan was occupied by the Mongols due to a mutiny, but wasn't valued. Later, it was recaptured by the Southern Song. Afterwards, after over 20 years of management, Shangfan became a solid anti-Mongol fortress for the Southern Song, making the Mongols hesitate. But with the recovery of the northern society and economy, the Shangfan campaign was put on the Mongols' agenda. In 1264, Kublai Khan, the Mongol prince who had long ruled the Central Plains, defeated his rivals and became the great Khan of the entire Mongol Khanate. Kublai Khan gathered many Confucian scholars, diviners, and advisors around him. Under their influence, he was more willing than other Mongol rulers to adopt Han Chinese methods. Kublai Khan moved the capital from the distant Mongol steppes to Dadu, located in present-day Beijing, modeled after Han Chinese dynasties, established an era name expressing his will to unify the world. Kublai Khan also reversed the Mongol habit of prioritizing destruction over construction, setting up agricultural officials everywhere to vigorously restore and develop agricultural production. He also forbade Mongol nobles from enclosing civilian land for their own use, lightened taxes, and rewarded farming. These measures revitalized the long desolate Central Plains. The problem of the Mongol army being unable to sustain prolonged campaigns due to insufficient supplies was completely solved. Against this backdrop, Liu Zhang presented his strategy to conquer the Song to Kublai Khan in 1267. Given past Mongol failures in Sichuan during campaigns against the Southern Song, Liu Zhang proposed shifting the main attack from Sichuan to Shanfan. Kublai immediately approved and appointed Liu as one of the commanders. As a former anti-Mongol hero of the Song, Liu Zhang knew capturing Shangfan posed 4 major challenges. First challenge: Shangfan's formidable defenses made it easy to hold, but hard to attack. Xianyang's stone walls were tall and sturdy, with the raging Han River to the north. Mountains encircled west and south, while Fancheng faced Xiangyang across the Han River, mutually reinforcing positions. The Song also drove thick wooden piles into the Han River, chained them, and built pontoon bridges. This created vital supply routes between cities, forming an ironclad defense that stalled Mongol attacks. Second challenge: The Song commanders weren't pushovers. Lu Wende, Jinghu commander and Jia Suda's confidant, survived the audit policy purge. His brother Lu Wenhuan guarded Xiangyang. Key generals were either Lu's sons-in-law or veterans. The entire zone was a Lu clan stronghold packed with skilled warriors. Third challenge. Mongols sucked at naval warfare. Zhongfan's waterways let Song dominate with their navy, making Mongol cavalry useless. Final challenge. Mongols fought on two fronts. Northwestern Mongol princes had rebelled. Kublai diverted elite troops west to suppress them, weakening Xiangyang forces and preventing quick victory. Kublai and Lu Jing first tackled the naval weakness. Kublai banned horse sails to Song to cripple their cavalry, boosting Mongol land advantage. He ordered Lu Jing to build a navy for Han River operations, fixing their weakness. Next, they devised a long-term siege, combined land forts with naval blockades to isolate Shanfan completely. Exhaust defenders by cutting all supplies until they collapse, then capture the cities. The Mongols executed this in 3 steps. Step 1. Build the first fort near Shangfan under Song's nose to prepare. To achieve this, Lu Zhang employed a deception strategy. Song and Mongols had established border markets called Kuichang, official trade posts, but frequent wars shut them down, hurting both sides. At Lu Xing's suggestion, Kublai sent envoys to Lu Wende, proposing a market at Lumen Mountain north of Fancheng, even gifting Lu a jade belt to show goodwill. Seeing profit for both Song and himself, Lu Wende happily agreed. Soon, Mongols claimed, they needed earthen walls and troops to protect the market from bandits. Lu raised no objection. Thus, Mongols easily established their first stronghold near Shangfan. Step 2. Rapidly build forts around Shangfan. By September 1238, Mongol forces massed north of Shangfan, and Lu Zhang built a fort at Baiheku northeast of Fancheng, pressuring Xiangyang. Xiangyang commander Lu Wenhuan panicked and alerted Lu Wende, who dismissed it as false intelligence. When Mongols reinforced Lumen Mountain's walls and besieged Fancheng, Lu Wende finally realized their siege plan, lamenting, "I'm the one who failed the court." He planned to lead troops against Mongols but fell gravely ill from distress. Step 3. Clear Song. Forces around Shangfan to complete encirclement. In 1269, Mongols raided surrounding counties, weakened defenses, and built great walls in southwestern mountains. By March, Baihe and Lumen forts were complete. Mongol navy seized key points, chained rivers, and fully blockaded both cities. Facing the siege, Song launched 3-phase countermeasures: garrison breakouts, relief forces, and militia assaults. First, garrison breakouts. Early in the siege, Lu Wenhuan's troops desperately tried breaking out. But Mongol control made breakthroughs minimal. The Battle of Wanshan Fort proved decisive. Wanshan Fort, built by Mongols west of Xiangyang on Mount Wan, cut off key routes. In 1270, Lu Wenhuan gathered 15,000 troops and 100-plus warships to assault it by land and water. The Mongol troops held firm in the fort. Song forces attacked multiple times but failed, and their morale plummeted. But the Mongol commander at Wanshan Fort had already led 200 cavalry to ambush the Song army from behind. Then they surged forward, trapping the Song troops between the fort and their ambush. The Song army collapsed. After the defeat at Wanshan Fort, the Xiangyang defenders lost all hope of breaking out. They could only wait for reinforcements from other war zones. The Southern Song's relief efforts entered Phase 2, mobilizing nearly all elite generals and imperial troops to break the siege, posing a huge threat to the Mongols. Yet, Chancellor Jia Sidao's blunders doomed the mission. Late in 1269, Jinghu commander Lu Wende died. Jia Sidao appointed Li Tingji as successor. Though capable, Li wasn't part of the Lu faction. He couldn't command Jinghu troops, especially Fan Wenhu, Lu's son-in-law, who demanded his forces report directly to Jia. Fan refused Li's authority, and Jia, eager to divide military power, naturally agreed. This command disunity crippled Song coordination. Afterward, Fan Wenhu led elite troops repeatedly into the siege zone under Jia's orders. Fan marched with 100,000 troops at a time but ignored Li's directives. Fighting separately, Fan suffered defeat after defeat. Song's finest troops were wasted meaninglessly. With regular armies failing, hope for relief faded. Meanwhile, in 1271, Kublai Khan formally adopted Han traditions, renaming the Mongol state to Great Yuan. The Yuan dynasty's founding made Kublai's ambition to unify China clear. The Xin-Fan campaign entered its final countdown. By then, Xiangyang and Fancheng had been besieged nearly 4 years. Isolated Xiangyang desperately lacked salt, cloth, and other supplies. Having lost faith in regular troops, Jinghu commander Li Tinji turned to militia. The Southern Song's last relief phase began. In 1272, Li built 100-plus light boats upstream on the Han River and recruited 3,000 civilians as militia, appointing Zhang Gui and his brother as leaders. By May, Shangfan's rainy season swelled the Han River, perfect for naval action. Seizing the moment, Li sent troops to assist the militia's waterborne assault on Xiangyang. Zhang Gui gathered the boats, each carrying 30 soldiers, with 3 lashed together as a fang, the center vessel holding 1 sack of salt and 200 bolts of cloth. Other supplies were placed on the left and right boats. The bottoms of the cabins were removed, and straw mats covered the decks for concealment. The boats were also equipped with firearms and cannons. Giant axes and powerful crossbows were among the weapons. Late at night, the fleet officially headed south, charging into the river surface filled with Mongol warships. The Song troops attacked Mongol ships with firearms and crossbows while swinging great axes to cut the iron chains blocking the river. Mongol warships rushed toward the Song's 3 boat-linked Fang vessels, with many soldiers leaping aboard to engage in close combat. Unexpectedly, the small boats on both sides of the Fang had been hollowed out beforehand, causing large numbers of Mongol soldiers to fall into the water and drown. After a night of fierce fighting, Mongol casualties were countless. By dawn the next day, Zhang Gui led the Song troops through 120 li of fighting, finally breaking through the blockade to reach Xiangyang's walls, delivering supplies. The defenders' morale soared. To further lift the siege, Zhang Gui sent men to desperately break through the Yuan blockade again. They coordinated with Fan Wenhu south of Xiangyang for a pincer attack to open a southern corridor. One evening in July, as Zhang Gui prepared to launch the attack per the plan, he suddenly discovered a soldier had defected. Certain the plan was compromised, Zhang Gui abandoned the sneak attack and instead opened fire with cannons.
Zhang Gui led the fleet in a bold charge toward Yuan warships. The Yuan troops were momentarily stunned and scattered.
Zhang Gui smoothly broke through the first blockade line. At this moment, Liu Zhang learned of the Song breakout and urgently deployed Yuan forces by land and water to encircle Zhang Gui. Zhang Gui fought desperately, breaking through layer after layer of blockades, gradually nearing the rendezvous point with Fan Wenhu. In the distance, warships crowded the river, banners blotting the sky. Overjoyed, Zhang Gui immediately raised a fire signal. The warships opposite saw the flames and immediately advanced to meet Zhang Gui.
Only then did they see these ships were all Yuan forces.
Turns out Fan Wenhu had retreated 2 days earlier, citing sudden storms. Liu Zhang, through defectors from Xiangyang, knew the rendezvous point and had set an ambush there in advance. Zhang Gui's exhausted troops, having fought through to this point, were slaughtered to the last man by the Yuan army. After Zhang Gui's death, Liu Zhang transported his corpse to the foot of Xiangyang's walls. Seeing this, the defenders knew all outside aid was cut off. They wept uncontrollably toward the south, crushing Song morale. Thus, all Southern Song attempts, garrison breakouts, relief forces, and militia assaults, ended in failure. Afterward, no Song troops could break the siege to enter or leave Xiangyang and Fancheng. The Southern Song failed to lift the siege and instead exhausted its military strength. Under pressure, Jia Sidao dismissed Fan Wenhu, Yet, generals living under the audit policy shadow could only keep blindly following Jia Sidao. Seeing Xiangyang untenable, Jinghu commander Li Tingji resigned in protest. Amid this crisis, Jia Sidao spent days at his West Lake Garden cricket fighting with concubines, while the Yuan army prepared their final assault. Kublai Khan finalized the Xiangyang campaign's endgame, sending envoys to Persia to recruit engineers for massive stone-hurling trebuchets. In January 1273, the Yuan army launched their final assault on Fancheng. Liu Zhang first burned the pontoon bridge between Xiangyang and Fancheng, isolating them. Then Hui Weipao breached Fancheng's walls. Yuan troops swarmed in. Despite fierce Song resistance, Fancheng fell with its entire population massacred. By late February, Yuan turned to Xiangyang, positioning trebuchets northeast. Their first shot destroyed the watchtower with earth-shaking force. These unstoppable projectiles weighed 75 kilograms, cratering the ground over 2 meters deep. Panic spread among Song troops and civilians, shattering morale. Yuan conveyed Kublai's offer. Praise for Lu Wenwan's years of unparalleled loyalty, plus high office and wealth. Just then, news arrived of commanders defecting within the city. Knowing all was lost, Lu Wenwan surrendered next day. The 5-year Shangfan campaign ended in total Yuan victory. With Shangfan fallen, the Jinghu defenses ripped open. Linan, modern Hangzhou, the southern Song capital, lay exposed. Though Jia Sidao was finally exiled, it was too late. In 1276, the Linan court surrendered to Yuan. In 1278, Diaoyu Fortress commanders surrendered after Kublai's no massacre pledge. In 1279, the last Song holdouts on the southeast coast were destroyed. Thus ended the 320-year Song Dynasty. After 45 years of north-south standoff, the Yuan dynasty became China's first minority-led regime to unify the nation. Well, that concludes The Balance. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.